Wagwan, good people. Welcome to another episode of 6 Foot Weights. My name is Senna. As you can see, usually I lead with Wagwan, Mr. Maps. But to Mr. Maps lamuhla angazi ukuthi uya ngaphi. He's disappeared. He decided to go MIA, or what did they say? They say AWOL, away without official leave or notice. Stepping up in his place today. Angazi my introduction nakho ufuna ngene ngezitemo, or should I just lead with with the adjectives, the normal English adjectives?
I just do whatever, just the cheese boy style.
You should drum roll. Okay. Okay, wait. Let me do it. Let me do it the Girl in Sky's way. Hi guys, another episode of 6 Foot Weights. My name is Senna Miso, and I always go by Senna.
My name is Natasha, and I sometimes go by Nat.
I feel like I got it wrong, but it's fine.
No. I think you got it right. And I'm gonna channel Mr. Map. So what's popping? What's popping, Mr. Moya? What's happening?
You need to be more toxic than that to match Mr. Maps proper. Even in the greeting. Maybe toxicity which right. Lapa, you are coming with violence and misogynoir.
It's what's popping. I know.
When you greet the people must just when you greet the people must just expect the misogynoir. Like it must just
I'll be like, man, shout out to all the dizzy Huns.
No, but Nat, seriously, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming through such short notice.
Thank you for having me.
You're always a very welcome guest on the podcast. Welcome to 6 Foot Weights, guys. I don't think I have any housekeeping. Thabo was away this week, so I don't know how this episode is going to be put together and stuff, but we'll make a plan. We always make a plan. Shout out to everyone who listened to last week's episode, and special thanks to King Kandoro for coming through. That was an amazing time. Everyone, the reviews are always great when he's on. Everyone comes back with such positive feedback. Like, yo, guys, I enjoyed the podcast. I enjoyed everything. It was fun. It was nice. So special thanks to you, Mukutse, and you guys should go check out his content, go check out his propaganda skits on YouTube, Instagram. He's not doing Sadza in the morning anymore, but if you like to watch or listen to the old episodes, go back to that. And obviously his one-man stand-up shows are on YouTube as well, so special thanks to him. Nat, how are you doing?
No, I am well. Power. Yes, May is such a long month, guys.
It is. Like, I'm feeling it.
It is such a long month. Tina ngapha, we're getting into, like, I guess it's spring, but we're moving into summer. So you already know, Uguti, we're now at that point where your crush is like responding. The responses are now delayed.
Yes.
Umuntu kabambeki ngama weekend. You already know what's up, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're just watching, and you're like, ibuhlungu njani into le. Uyabuphomba ukubukela uphomba ukuthi vela izinto zangikhona. Being given vague. Yeah. How was your weekend? No, mine was good when I But during winter, you used to tell me breakdown at 11 a.m. This happened 10:30. But you just have to. It's that season where you just have to, stand up and you just have to be strong and trust what you have. Trust what is as they expire. That's really all you can do.
So I wonder what it is though about summer and spring in particular that makes people act or start acting weird. Is it because Katesi, everything's open, people are going out, the chances of meeting other people are bigger, so abasak dingi, or
I think it's that, and particularly like in Europe, some of the days are longer. So, normally like wintertime, we have it's dark. Like, when we used to go into the office and stuff, if you leave your house like at 7:30, it's probably dark. If you leave the office, after 6, it's dark. So the day feels shorter.
Yes.
But then now it kind of feels long. People in summer do things after work,
Yes, you go for
things you
drinks and
exactly
everything.
things you wouldn't dream of, things you wouldn't dream of during winter. So I think it's just the more socialization, and obviously, yeah, you're probably going to meet more people. So it's a very challenging time.
And winter bakufuna left and right.
Winter.
Phansi phezulu.
Wait, as soon as you text, you see the bubble, them responding. But now you get Thabo, I'm sorry, I slept. What, sutshela ukuthi let's meet next week. How? Next week njani? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do the rest of the days?
It really sounds like a case for the feeling station.
It really does. No, it's funny because I was listening to this podcast where they were talking about it, and they were breaking it down. And but otherwise, it's a good season. Can you imagine being in like where the weather's gray and it's cold for literally 6 months of the year? That's a lot. So people kind of try and make the most of good weather. But otherwise, I know it's a good time. Summer's a good time.
It's a good time. We're in the opposite. So like today I went to the office, and it was raining. Like it rains during winter in Cape Town generally. So our winter season mirrors Europe. So it rains a lot during the winter. So then I woke up in the morning, it was dark. You'd think it's late, Kanti, it's 7. Like it's 7, kumnyama, it's cold, it's raining. And then even on the drive, you're stuck in traffic. And I'm just there like, guys, people who are, I guess, working from home deserve to die, because what the fuck's this?
Well, that's a bit drastic.
No, it was. Because, like when you're stuck in bumper to bumper traffic, kumnyama, and it's 7 in the morning and it's raining. And like, guys, I could be in my bed doing exactly what I'm going to do where I'm going. I couldn't. But anyways, that's my rant over. Let's get into it, because I know we don't have a lot of time. I was listening to one of your latest episodes. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And then you guys were talking about Nhlanhla Lux and this Operation Dudula and all these things. So we're going to lead today's podcast with something a bit serious. We'll probably get lighter towards the end, guys. So stay tuned. But anyways, this is obviously, you guys were just chatting about it and how harmful it potentially could be. How he comes across as if he's saying smart things, but it might be misinformation. Before I get into kind of my thoughts and the history behind this whole thing and what I think, do you mind just giving a brief summary of what you were thinking about, or the things that came to your mind when you're reading about Nhlanhla Lux and Dudula and all these things?
Yeah. And I'm hoping, Guti, at least when I know you will know more. Like, we were just sort of casually talking. But I think it was off the back of Elvis Nyati, the Zimbabwean man who unfortunately was murdered, really. And my understanding of events was Guti, it was a case of mistaken identity. He was, they thought he was someone else who had committed some kind of crime, but actually, it was not him. And the person who had committed that crime was actually in police custody, right? And my whole thing was, Uti, there's a danger of these kind of like vigilante things where people are like, oh, we're cleaning up our streets. And that's my understanding. I stand to be corrected with the Nhlanhla Lux thing, right? Uguti, they're kind of like saying, Uguti, no, these things are happening in our communities. The police are not acting quick enough. Politicians are not acting quick enough. So we're taking matters into our own hands. However, right, what always happens with these things is it turns xenophobic very quick. Right? And Ama immigrants end up being like just low-hanging fruit, where people will be like, oh, Ama Zimbabweans or whatever. And I think the thing that really grated me with Unhlanhla Lux was he retweeted or he posted like a fake story where a fake story which was being basically it was like President Mnangagwa sort of saying and I don't really even like repeating these things, but it was basically the sentiment of Uguti, or the immigrants in South Africa, they are criminals. Blah blah blah, and funnily enough, it was turning tribal quite quick. But that was a fake story, right?
A fake story,
I don't think President Mnangagwa actually said that, but it was so. I felt it was so irresponsible to sort of tweet that, right?
It was dangerous.
Absolutely dangerous. Zimbabweans who come, it's the Trump thing, right? With we're not getting the best and the brightest, we're getting criminals, we're getting the rapists, we're getting thieves, that's sort of like dangerous rhetoric. And like I said, I purposely also just don't want to know too much about Shashalal, but then I happened to interact with just some of his content. Like I think the first time I came across him was he was on Podcast and Chill with Mark G and Saul, and I immediately was like, I call BS. Like I was just
on
like,
a lot of things.
Yeah, I was like, who is this guy? Because at the time I was kind of talking and he was saying, I think Saul had made a comment with, oh, he's got that private school, whatever. And then they were kind of laughing, because Saul kind of has that as well. And, but I think Saul was kind of challenging him a little bit. What's your background, Janjan?
What's your thing? What's your vibe?
Exactly, and he'll give the whole spiel with, oh, my father was a criminal, my mother, she used to work for like white people, and she just had the gift of, just I guess like this, that. And then I saw a clip when he was with Sizwe Dlomo, and he sounded like Sizwe, and I was like, no, this guy is a proper private school, like cheese boy. Cheese boy, but he is a cheese boy looking for a cause, right? And I think what's disingenuous is, he's not our communities, that dude, that's not your community. If we're keeping it about honest. Like that's not your community. Someone I mean, there's nothing wrong, but someone this is happening in Bopo Manjajan, and you've never, like, you live like in a Benside, right? You live in Majamhlope. You've never, that's not your community. Like you literally, you don't know anything about that life, right? So I just it was worrying to me. And then also on the other side, I think there is a conversation to be had with, I'll focus on Zim because that's where we're from. There's a conversation to be had about I don't know, just the responsibility of the Zimbabwean government, right? Yes. Because if we go back to the Elvis Nyati thing, my understanding is that there was a gathering, and then the ambassador came, right, to that gathering, but then he was chased away because you know what happened. I don't know if you saw the story, but he the ambassador, he is an ambassador to South Africa, right? There is a very large multi-tribal population in South Africa from Zim, right? He came there, whatever. He could not utter a word of Isindebele or even isiZulu, right? And then what happened is people were like, they chased him out because he needed an interpreter. I mean, what kind of privilege is that? I'm sorry.
There's a certain level of arrogance that comes with that.
Of course, because if you were the ambassador to Spain or whatever, you would come and you'd be like, oh, como estas? Like you would know the local language, but it's just the sheer Konoko, it's the tribalism mixed with incompetence, just mixed with all that sort of stuff. So can you imagine these are the people that are supposed to advocate for us?
Yeah. No, it's
right?
terrible. It's terrible.
So yeah.
I'll let me maybe it's a bit of a history lesson for those who may not be aware of where a lot of these things stem from. So post 94, South Africa's always been, and you'll forgive me if this may come across as like a monologue of Senna going on one of his things again, but post 94, South Africa's always been a tense country, especially in Gauteng. Gauteng is unique in the sense that it's the smallest province in size, but it's the most populated and most diverse in the entire country. So when you go to Joburg and maybe even Pretoria, you are likely to find a lot of people from different parts of South Africa and different parts of Africa, right? So it's always been like a melting pot in a way where people go to seek better opportunities, right? It's the richest city on the continent. What I think has unfortunately happened is every time things don't go well economically, there's foreign nationals become, kind of the scapegoats for which, people, for people to blame. And it stems back from, if my understanding is correct, I think the first sort of proper outbreak of xenophobic violence was in 2008. And we all know what things were like in 2008, right? Everything was terrible. Things were bad economically. There was no food in Zim. People in South Africa were losing jobs. It was probably the worst economic depression we had seen in 50 plus years, whatever it is. So what happened is that was the first outbreak, which stemmed from a lot of people, especially from Zim, moving and crossing the border into SA. So what South Africa did at the time, which was a quick fix, but it wasn't really a proper fix. Thabo Mbeki had the opportunity to criticize Robert Mugabe and pressurize Mugabe to like step aside. And we all know that he didn't do that, right? They all coddled him, but like, Bob, like maybe like calm down. And that didn't work. So what it meant was South Africa, as the most affected neighbor, decided to not take a stance, right? Their friendly politics, whatever it was, their friendly foreign policy, they didn't do anything. So they chilled, right? And what it meant was just more people kept leaving Zim, crossing the border into SA. And they do this in 2 or 3 different ways, right? So the first is you have a passport, you go into the country, you get a work permit or a study permit, and you work legally in the country. That's fine, right? It's the streamlined main process of getting rights to live in SA. The second was people who had passports cross the border and then not leave. So people who'd overstay and then end up being illegal immigrants with passports, but they've overstayed and they just look for opportunities. Whether or not they get deported, they run that risk. It is what it is. It's better than going back to Zim, right? This is all in a space of maybe 5 years or so from the early 2000s. I have no idea. And then the last group were people obviously jumped the border, like physically, 100 Ks from Beitbridge, cross the Limpopo, walk all the way to a small town, and then from there, catch a bus or whatever to Joburg, look for opportunities as a cleaner, as a waiter, wherever, as long as it's not Zim, people are just happy to do that. So what you have now is a very big population of Zimbabweans living in South Africa, a lot of them legal and a lot of them illegal, which is obviously a problem, right? So what unfortunately then happened is South Africa, instead of saying, Zim, fix your issues, they went for like what's called a quick fix, and they issued ZSPs. So it's like Zimbabwe special dispensation visas, right? Which were, if you're a Zimbabwean with a passport and a job offer, you can work in SA, and that's fine. Like, we'll let you work will, if you've overstayed on your passport, will forgive you, just come and apply. But what it didn't do is for the people who didn't have passports, they were still stuck in the same position. It didn't remedy their situation. And in any event, the ZSPs were meant to be temporary measures. So you couldn't renew it. It was just like, okay, Bambalapa, this will make you legal. And then after that, at least Tina as SA were able to know where you are. Home Affairs knows where you are. And then what we can do is once you've got your ZSP in 3 years, apply for a work permit, apply for study, apply for other rights in terms of what the Immigration Act. What unfortunately happened, South Africa then decided to, over the years, become stricter in their immigration regulations. So to get a South African work permit now is almost impossible. You can't get that thing because employers will ask your the Department of Home Affairs will ask your employer if they've interviewed other South Africans and gotten permission from the Labor Department to hire you. Obviously, what it means is if you don't have a critical skill, you're gonna fall off. You're not gonna get rights. So all these people, what was meant to kind of solve the problem has just extended it. And we've just now got thousands, or even I think it's probably over 1 million now, Zimbos in limbo in South Africa. And then whenever things go south, whenever the economy is not working, whenever people are upset, no one ever challenges the government of South Africa. No one ever challenges whoever. It's always, these ones must go. They're the problem. They're the reason they don't have a job. They're the reason there's crime, of which, obviously, if you don't have a job, it's because the country's not creating enough jobs. The guy who's working as a waiter earning in tips at Mug and Bean, he's not the one taking your job because he's also just begging for pennies, right?
Exactly.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, whenever someone has, I think, a political aspiration, it's a very easy coattail to ride off. And that usually sparks xenophobic violence. And to this day, no one in the ANC or in South African government will ever go to ZANU-PF and say, hey, chief, guys, maybe let's fix the problem that makes people leave where they are, right? No one's ever done that in the space of, it was 2008 back then. It's now 14, 15 years later. And we still have xenophobic violence. To people who say foreigners must go, they'll go and you still face the same problems, right? Crime has always been an issue in South Africa. That's a policing issue. Lack of proper opportunities and employment. That's because the economy and the government is not doing enough to create jobs. Most Zimbos that are working here, it's either they have very scarce and special skills. I always say that Zimbabwe has exported probably 50% of its most brilliant minds to everywhere around the world. And then 60% of its middle class to South Africa and other places. And unfortunately, guys like Lux and all of these will okay, cool. No stress. So guys like Lux and all of these guys will always take advantage, if that makes sense. And they'll ride off the coattails of that. And before you know it, we'll have regular xenophobic outbursts. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe it's not to remove, but to fix the root. Migration is the most natural thing to ever exist in the world, right? People have been migrating since the beginning of time. Animals migrate, like people move. It's a natural thing. Obviously, now we've got the borders and the world is moving towards a direction which I don't agree with personally, where it's like now we're clamping down on any movement. Brexit was also, big on that. That was one of the main things. Stop immigrants. But I think immigration, when it's controlled, is fine. Even if you think it's uncontrolled, it is not the issue that people should be fighting over. But yeah, that's my rant over. I mean, I've been actually avoiding any operation Nhlanhla content on Twitter for a reason.
No, and I understand, and thank you for that context. So just a question, is it the same in Cape Town or is it different?
It's different. It's different because Cape Town is unique in that it's white dominated. It's white and color dominated. They're not competing for, well, I say compete very loosely because even Black people in Joburg aren't competing with each other for opportunities. But Black people in Cape Town don't see foreign nationals as competitions for the opportunities that are here. The majority of the white people do not see Black people as competition for the economic opportunities. Same with colored people and everything. Cape Town has this problem, right? It's got racism, a huge class difference, a huge monetary divide. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what makes Joburg unique is just how many different kinds of people, different tribes, nationalities are there. And when you have that many differences and that much struggle and poverty in one place, it's bound to erupt like that if someone stokes the fires.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Uti. It's so unfair. Uti, expats, as they're known, they don't have that experience. I always think it's funny, like when you hear people in the UK, like, oh, I love South African, and I'm always like, where did you go? And it's always Cape Town. Like, yeah, of course.
So the people say so that Cape Town is South Africa light. Like you just haven't experienced South Africa unless you go to Joburg.
Yeah. No. Thank you for that. And yeah.
So if anyway, look, the one thing that I've been avoiding, I know Hopewell once had like a space on this, and which I thought was very irresponsible. Me and my friend, remember me and Hanani were just talking about it. We're like, bruh, you can't. You're literally giving xenophobes a platform to pile more hate on foreign nationals because you're like, what's the issue? Everyone knows that things are already tense. You're basically saying, right, guys, come, let's fan this fire even more. And so stuff like that, like I think even on social media, we need to be careful the kind of content that we engage with, especially spaces that we jump onto whenever all this, xenophobic stuff is happening. I mute it because in the grander scheme of things, you're just giving these people the platform that they want. And I can tell you now, the majority of South Africans are not xenophobic. It's usually just a small, very, very militant group of people that are motivated by someone or some people. And then they make it seem like, the country, doesn't like foreigners. That's not the case. South Africans are amongst the most welcoming, friendly people you'll ever meet. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents.
No, thank you.
I hope I was a bit for UK learning that one day city as suffer.
Listen, that's why we need to tint our green passports, guys. And does have more e-passport and all that stuff. And the last point that I was going to make was on people that have these conversations, and I think it was. I think I listened to your episode where you guys kind of touched on it, and you were explaining how you just don't like engaging with this thing, and it really made me think, Ukuthi, to be honest, like people that were on that space, or just generally people who just comment, are normally people who are not in SA. It's people who are in Zim, or people who are, in the UKs and all that stuff. And we're the ones who are, able to kind of be like, oh yeah, but what is our government doing? And kind of have all this, wanting to sound nuanced. And you don't know what actually you're putting people in danger.
That's the truth.
By having those conversations. So yeah.
And you got politicians, I mean, guys like Herman Mashaba and a couple other guys who will ride off this wave because that's the ticket that they are taking for success, right? That's the one that they're relying on for popularity, because politics is about popularity. And if you feel like there's popular sentiment, you're gonna jump on that wave and make sure that people listen to you until you're tired, until they're tired. And one of the big things is no matter, I like how you said people try to be nuanced. You want to enter these spaces with people you've never met before, and you
Mm-hmm.
want to be nuanced and flex your intellectual capabilities
Mm-hmm.
and try to look at things from this perspective and that perspective and try to be this. Listen, you're engaging with people that are probably most likely made up their minds
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
what their intentions behind all of that, and you're not going to change them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Vele, I interlay, but I think you're right. Like you just can't. You have to be responsible with the conversations that you have.
Yes.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like I said, it's normally people who are not in SA,
Yeah.
who have these conversations. But no, thank you, Mr. Moyo,
Yes.
for
No, no,
that.
no. It's all good. It's all good. Thank you. Let's move on to some
Uh-huh,
different type of content because
uh-huh,
this one is triggering for a lot of people.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Apologies to those who felt like uncomfortable in those, but we move.
Mm,
There's something that I was watching on Netflix. I'm not sure if you saw it, Matt.
mm-hmm.
It's called Our Father. Did you
Yes.
did you watch that show?
I did.
Bruh,
Oh my goodness.
I'm so
Evil.
shook.
Mm-mm.
I'm so shook.
Guys, the
Um,
world is evil.
so
Mm-mm.
for those who haven't watched it, I'm not laughing because it's funny, because
Yeah.
it's also just like a terrible, terrible thing. So what happened, I think it's in the 70s.
Yeah.
There's a doctor in some state in the US. He was a fertility, or is a fertility specialist, he's still alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a fertility specialist who, when women would come to him, or when
Yeah.
couples would come and say, "Hey, no, look, we're struggling to have a child. Maybe let's use, your specimen. Maybe let's use your semen to impregnate your wife." He
Uh-huh.
would then decide,
Hmm.
this man, he would then decide to use his own
Yep.
specimen.
Uh-huh.
The
Uh-huh.
funny thing is, in deciding to use his own things,
Mm-hmm.
it was he'd often, even when the woman came in, maybe she was single or something, he'd say, "No, we got it from an anonymous donor. Someone donated whatever, and this is what we used." So over the years, this is probably, I don't know how long he'd been doing this,
Yeah.
but he had been impregnating a whole bunch of women without their consent or knowledge with
Uh-huh.
his semen. So a
Ugh.
lot of these women then come later on in life,
Uh-huh.
they have children, and these children,
Yeah.
I think one of them did like a DNA test, which
Uh-huh.
should, like, oh no, so Chuti, my doctor is this, my father is the doctor. And
Mm.
then the more, I don't know how that site works in the States,
Uh-huh.
but other siblings kept popping up.
Uh-huh.
And I
Uh-huh.
think he's like got over 100 and
Uh-huh.
counting,
Yep.
people that match his DNA that he fathered over the years,
Yeah.
apparently assisting these women. Nat, what were your thoughts as you were watching that?
I couldn't believe it. Like at first I saw the trailer before it dropped, and I just couldn't believe it. I can't even find the words. It's so cruel. It is you know all of it is bad, and but I especially felt just especially more bad for the couples where the husband or the partner like gave his sample, right?
Yes.
And thought uti kona kona, you know, that is his child. I just think there's just something so cruel about that, because literally Uti, he would get the similar and be like, yeah.
Nah.
And he would throw it
Nah.
away, like I'm saying, it's all bad because people didn't consent to it. But I just think that is just so cruel. And you think about Tuguti, what is happening in the mind of such a person, you know, who is doing that? I bet he never thought Tuguti technology would be so advanced. Tuguti, I think it was a website called 23andMe.
Yes.
And how these things work is, you get your profile and then it will ping you if you have relatives. like if there's people that kind of match your DNA, and that's how people sort of discover, oh, my cousin, or this, because a lot of people are displaced, especially, you know, in America.
Yeah.
So I think he never thought he would be found out, you know, like ever. And there's just something so narcissistic about the whole thing. And I thought what was even sad was Wuti, I think there was nothing they could do, like in terms of bringing criminal charges or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
particular form of, I'll call it assault. That particular
Mm,
form of assault isn't legislated as yet because you don't
mm,
envisage something like that happening
yeah.
ever.
Yo. Nah, man, that is wild. I don't know if it's spoiling if we say how many kids. Well, anyway, it was
Well,
quite high.
it was high. I think I've already said. I said over 100. But
Yeah.
you guys could check out that thing. I think what's so people who do that. Um, I once met a guy here in Cape Town actually, at the gym. So I go to the
Mm-hmm.
gym, I'm lifting. Afterwards, I meet this guy and we're just talking, and he's like, no, so how old are you? And at the time I was about 24.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, nah, I'm 24. It's like, okay, so how many children do you have? I'm like,
Mm.
chief, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Like, I don't
uh,
have any. It's like,
mm-hmm.
Hindab. Like, what do you mean, Hindab? Like,
Yeah.
what are you saying? I don't have the motivation or incentive or the finances to do that right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's Xhosa guy. He's like, no, no, no. Don't you know that umsebenzi wakho emhlabeni is to multiply, umithisa,
Mm.
and have more and reproduce. That's when you become a
Mm-hmm.
man. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, chief, if this is your way of thinking, hey,
Yeah.
I'm scared for you. And obviously, people say that that doctor was in what may have been in some sort of a cult.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but dude, I thought that was really messed up.
Mm.
In the sense that baningi abantu who continue to do this probably, nowadays, who just father as many children as possible and not
Mm.
care a damn. I wonder what it is. Is it a biological thing that incentivizes, that pushes people to do that?
Yeah, because it's kind of like the Nick Cannon thing, right?
I
Where
was about to come to that one.
yeah, because he's now on child number 8. Um, but I think with him, he kind of gets away with the fact that seemingly, you know, he's different households seem to be content. We never hear any mess, and he's able to kind of care for them, right? I do think that there are some people. I have met people who I don't know if you have like I've increasingly met guys who genuinely get a lot of joy from having kids, not in an irresponsible way. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Get what you mean?
Like, and it's always interesting to me because I think we kind of grew up with men just, but I think that this new generation of men, they're quite involved, I think they're doing much better. But I just think my issue is where you father these kids and then you do not take care of them,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I think you have to um, be there for them emotionally as much as you can, financially as much as you can. But I think there's just something, people's psyches are different. But like, for example, you were saying that Kosaka was saying to you, oh, your job is this. And what
Mm.
I would challenge with that is nowhere is the kid the focus. It's
Yes.
about you.
It's about you
And
and your ego and
exactly. And I always kind of think that's quite a dangerous space because
mm,
yes, you can have the desire yourself, but I think you should also think about the child because
mm,
if all goes according to plan, you will die before the child and the child will will be an adulting, so you need to think about the child as well.
yeah.
What's my what can I do? But I think it's just to say that's a totally separate conversation to this our father
It
guy who
is.
was
It
put.
is.
I mean, that is
No,
disgusting.
that's just
That
sick.
is that is absolutely sick. And like I said, I think never thought there would ever be a website where people connect the dots.
And maybe he did. So what happens? So you upload your DNA. So you go for a DNA test, I assume, right?
Yeah.
And then what do? You upload your results?
No, because the company is the one that processes so you send your DNA to your Nale 23andMe or whatever.
Oh,
Right.
okay. So it's the company that actually, it's a lab. The lab will.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's different settings. Maybe you can choose, not to be visible or whatever. So then that's how it will match. It'll be like, oh, looks like you have so and so as a distant cousin, or that sort of stuff. But let me ask you this, because I had a conversation. I was talking to my cousin about this, and she was kind of saying that, because you remember there was the first the daughter who was the one who started this, took the DNA test, blah 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 blah, and then she was the one reaching out to different people when she kind of cracked with all this was happening. But my cousin was kind of saying it was not her place to almost like ruin people's lives. I don't know. She was kind of saying that like, she didn't like the fact that she seemed to get joy, like, oh, another sibling, let me make a call.
Yeah.
But I don't know what you think.
She took it very personally to every time it pinged, she literally just decided, oh, okay, cool. I would jump to her defense a little bit and say perhaps her presumption was Ubuti, when people are going onto 23andMe, it is because they are curious and they want to know.
Yeah.
So it's not, obviously, I'm sure there are other DNA testing facilities that can assist you with, doing a test and then withholding your privacy. I don't think we have anything in Zim or even South Africa. I'm not sure about anywhere else where you can submit your DNA results and they test it and then link it to other people.
Yeah.
I don't think we have something that's along those lines. So I would assume her presumption was anyone who is doing this is doing this mainly for the benefit of finding out information or answering questions that they had. Otherwise, they would have done it in a more confidential, disclosed manner, right? Because I assume you sign consent or release forms for your DNA to be linked to other people and then made available sort of online.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, I think you make a good point that you're already curious. But like you said, there were over 100. I think we probably saw, I want to say maybe about 20 siblings. So clearly the others didn't want to come on Netflix. Like,
and be
just no,
it's sick. I'm trying to see, obviously, let's say when I submit this thing and then someone comes to me and says, hey, chief, the person that you think is your father is not your father. It's some weird ass doctor. You're then you're immediately faced with the conundrum, right? Do I continue with my life as it is without disclosing any of the stuff?
Yeah.
Or do I reach out to these people and, expose the doctor? Obviously, once the documentary comes out and your mother went to this guy, already in her head, she'll now know, time.
Yeah.
This is what happened.
And the thing is, I wonder how many people have hid, like maybe they've seen this documentary and like you say, they know that they went to that doctor, but they're like, over my dead body, like I am not, because not everyone's doing DNA tests and stuff, right? So there are people who are like, nope, I'm not about to, lose my marriage. But no, that is so cruel, guys.
No, it is cruel. It's cruel. And the funny thing is he leveraged that sick act to then be recognized as an industry expert. So like people were like, yo, that doctor's got results. Hey, like you want a kid, you go to him, like he works. Like we are Sebenza, like and then that time
literally. The thing is, there's this
Wow.
woman who was saying that obviously to kind of get, the premium grade, you have to put in some work. So this guy is proper. Like, hi guys,
So
no.
obviously, just to end this one from a legal point of view,
Mhm.
so and this unfortunately the definition of rape has changed over time. Trigger warning to
Right.
everyone who may be listening to this. It's changed over time. I think in many countries it used to be vaginal penetration that was the primary definition of rape. But then over the years, I know in SA, for example, even in some, they've amended it to say, no, it's not just vaginal, it can be anal. It's not just with your manhood, it can also be with your hands or an object,
Right.
anything that,
Yeah.
without your consent is being used and put into your body, even if it's not vaginal, even through your mouth, it's just that falls into the Sexual Offences Act. This was just weird because it seemed to evade all the broad definitions that we've come to this day. And that's just how crazy this whole story was. But I hope eventually maybe they can sue him for a class action suit, and so you want money for the pain and suffering and the damage, breach of contract, whatever it is. I'm sure there's something they can get him on.
Yeah. Oh God. That's disgusting, man. That is
Sick.
That is yeah, that is sick. That is sick.
Sick. Moving along, because time perspective. I'm not sure if you saw this chat on Twitter. It wasn't in the notes that I sent you because I only thought about it later. So I'm hoping that your mind will latch onto it quick. There were a lot of chat on the socials in the last couple of days about marriage. Did you see them?
Are you talking about is it this girl cooking for her husband?
I wasn't sure where it came from. Mina ngingena ku-Twitter ngabona abantu sebekhuluma ngabo ngama-think piece after think piece. Why do you guys want to get married? Marriage is rooted in patriarchy. kunjani. And it was like a lot. And someone even said besides besides money or something, why else would you do it? Right. I'm not sure if what the tweet was or where the chat came from that.
So I think there's many things, right? But I know that there's this lady on Twitter called Miss Chindia, I think. She got married to this guy called Ten Diamond. I don't know if you know Ten Diamond. He's a rapper. He was on Cook Off, the Netflix movie.
I think Thabo and King Kandoro touched on her marriage last week, something along those lines.
Yeah. Where they were being toxic.
Yes.
where Kandoro was like, people like could never be me. It's like, it could never be you.
It really couldn't.
Because I think there's a number of things. I think the initial chat, I didn't really. There's this thing, or whatever, but I think in Ndebele culture we kind of do it differently. But it's almost like when you get married, then you kind of get roasted by the guy's family. Like they want you to like cook emlilweni, stuff like that, right? I think she posted something about that, but to be honest, I didn't really engage with that. But then I think apparently I don't follow her like on Instagram, but someone was like, I think it started with someone saying, miss whatever, like I love how like she's cooking. So I think she like posts like a pega and like maybe like serving her husband, then that's when it exploded, right? Then everyone had opinions and stuff like that. I always think like with these Twitter chats, right? So to be honest, there's probably something I'm missing. I don't know what made people feel like they can comment on a marriage that is not theirs.
Yes, I always find that interesting. And then on top of commenting on it, make very crazy generalizations. So you're
Yeah.
taking someone's context and then you're just saying, yeah, but Mina, in my opinion, there's no benefit to this thing. And I'm just there like, okay.
Yeah. Okay, listen, right? I think I have an issue when people have a conversation and it's linked to a specific person, right? Or a specific marriage, because I think that is unfair. People's relationships are individual. I don't think it's anyone's place to comment. Do you remember a few years ago when this woman talked about how she wakes up at 3 a.m. to bake scones for
Yeah,
her
I remember
husband?
that chat.
And people were like, no. People were
Like,
like,
could
no.
never be me.
And then like a few days later, she was now tweeting, trying to, say, oh, I woke up and daddy trying to make out like he did some chores like as well. Like, oh, he got us hot water or something like that. Okay, here's the thing, right? I do think that if you look at just marriage and who it benefits, right? I do think it benefits men more. Like, and I want to be clear, I'm not talking about these particular people. I do not know them, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that just look at the ages that married men die compared to single men, right? Married men live longer. Married women live less. So if you're a single woman, you're probably going to live longer, right?
Yeah.
Than if you are married. And I think, and I do think that a lot of how we view things, although we want to be progressive and all that stuff, it's giving, like you guys were saying last week. It is rooted in patriarchy. Like a lot of what it's rooted and it's giving patriarchy, right?
Yeah.
And then I think, from my understanding, what a lot of people kind of push back on is this choice feminism, right? Of uti, when women sort of say, I am choosing to do this. I am choosing to cook for my husband. I am choosing to, this is what, but then what they'll be saying, uti, you need to interrogate your choices. Like, are they really, like, it's just like when someone says, my preference is, right? My preference is this type of woman. It's kind of like, okay, I get it, but can we interrogate your preferences? You think you have autonomy over your preferences, but actually you don't. It is
You
a
may not,
function of being influenced by media, by social media. It's a function of different things, but we think we have the choice, but actually we don't, right? Like, if you really deep it. But listen, I think at the end of the day, people should pursue their happiness,
their
right?
happiness.
And
What I'll
I
say,
think that's the thing. Yeah.
all I'll add is, fine, even if people can say, is it really your choice, or has society nudged you into such a direction that you believe is your choice? That can apply to almost every single thing you do on a day-to-day basis. When you wake up in the morning, from deciding to take a shower, is it really your choice, or has society placed an expectation that you must shower in the morning? From deciding to brush your teeth, from deciding to do anything you want in a day, is it your choice, or society placed that obligation? Now, obviously, marriage is a different type of thing. It's an agreement between two people.
Yeah.
I think we're now at a point where, unfortunately, I need to be very careful how I word this, lest I be cancelled. Where, unfortunately, there is a move to make things that we've grown up thinking are standard, pretty normal, as unpopular as possible.
Right.
There's sort of a debranding of the nuclear family type setup in a way, right? So someone will come and say, I want, my wife and 2 kids. As a man, I can say this, and guys aren't going to bat an eye in terms of my choice or shame me for making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
I found a lot of women are now scared to actually come out and own that, especially on Twitter. Maybe in like outside of Twitter, I think people are still like, I know, me, I want this. My family expects this. It would make my parents happy. It would make me happy.
Yeah.
But when you come on Twitter and you say that, there's a kind of shaming that comes from a certain sphere of social media. Yeah. It's like, you wake up and bake scones for your husband at 3 a.m.
Could never be me.
Could never be me. What if another husband wakes up and does other things for his person at some point? I always laugh when I'm talking to some friends. And I'm like, yo, guys, so ngangena umuntu in the house and I'm with my girlfriend. There's an expectation ukuthi Sena must go and see what's happening.
Right.
Right? I mean, society's placed that expectation on me. And indoda must. So I must not do that. And I think we mustn't impose our own beliefs onto people as if this is the right way to live life. This is the wrong way to live life. People want to get married, let them go get married. If you have views on what for you, it would be almost giving patriarchy more power, then that's your view. Stick by it, keep it. Yeah. Don't now try to impose it aggressively, because I think that's what happens on Twitter, aggressively on other children. I was going to ask what your views are on marriage in general, but on what? On marriage in general, but
well, my views.
Now you start telling me it's rooted.
It's giving. My views on marriage are similar to Whoopi Goldberg's views, which is I don't want anyone living in my house. I was like, I don't want. No. To be honest, I think marriage is a beautiful, beautiful thing. If I met the right person, I would love to get married. I think, unfortunately, maybe I've also seen like when it goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think you can't beat two people coming in agreement and choosing to build a life, just even financially, even like what you're saying about the outcomes of abantwana. There are better outcomes if, it's a two-parent household. And I think the most important thing is that people need to do what works for them, right?
Yes.
And I always say, and maybe Lama will be cancelled, but I always laugh with my friends and I'm always like, guys, don't use Twitter standards
in life
in your marriages and all that sort of stuff, because I think it's a bit of give and take. And the honest truth is to have some, I think family marriage is one of those institutions where you kind of need some type of order, right? And unfortunately, with some type of order, people play different roles, and I have to know, if I'm hiking the volleyball, I catch. You know what I mean? Like you have to know, the role you're playing, and that's why some people laugh and say, isn't because all these like super educated people like it's not gonna work. So I just think people should do what works for them. But I do agree that probably a lot of people now keep quiet. Like there's certain things that they wouldn't say on social media. And then I think there's this toxic thing that has started, which is, I think it started with the whole high value men, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then there's their whole
alpha male.
Yeah, but then there are all these femininity coaches. Like if you go on if you go on like TikTok and stuff like that, it's this whole push of like, oh, if you're a woman, if you want to attract a high value man, whatever, you need to tap into your femininity. It's giving weird. they're proper like femininity coaches and stuff like that. And I'm just always like, oh my God. I think maybe where sometimes some women struggle is it just always feels like you have to perform, you have to labor to almost get this prize, right?
Yes.
To kind of get this prize. Because the truth is, right? The truth is, in most traditional setups,
yeah,
a man is the one that can give access to marriage. I don't know if that makes sense.
in most traditional setups, a man is the one that gives access. So in the sense that if a
There's
man
certain
doesn't,
keys that people hold, right?
okay. If he
And
doesn't ask you, it's not happening.
it's not happening. I mean, you can try and ask, but I mean, it only if the man, like the man is the one who's going to decide this is, and for most women they want that, right? So it's almost like you have to, it feels like it's like a competition, like a chase to get this thing. But I think marriage is a beautiful thing. Honestly, I think people, but I think people should do what works
for them.
But I do agree that a lot of people like keep quiet. They don't listen. You will meet the most progressive woman. And the other thing, can I just say, men, right? The sinners of this world, they'll come across as progressive, oh, what. But most men in their homes, they are not progressive at all. Like, when you now marry that man, this guy wants me to cook every day. Talk to people you should talk to your women friends who've got married, and they will tell you that there's men know the talk, right? They now know how to position things in a certain way, and
yes,
but they are not progressive. I'm sorry. Like in most setups, in most homes, men are not progressive. And that's the honest truth. And then if you want peace in your home, are you going to be coming every day and saying, oh, this is rooted in patriarchy, it's giving this, it's giving that? You're just going to keep quiet and,
It's unfortunate because I think a lot of these, like we said, society places a lot of demands on both parties. It becomes unfortunate when two people, they agree that, I want you, and then they need to get families involved, and then all of a sudden, roles have to be delineated, right? So all of a sudden, you told your family, then they say, right, he must come. This mkwasha mkwenyana must come and pay, whatever. And then his family on the flip side is saying, hey, ndod, mfaz mela kichima pitizela pege, whatever, right? I always think back to when we go Emma Kai, right? And I always feel slightly bad. I'm a guy, obviously. It's a patriarchal family. We go visit my grandparents. You'll have my girl cousins running around cooking, everything. Even though at home or outside of that setting, we are as equal as can be. At school, we're equal. Academically, we're equal. Maybe even at home, they treat us equally. But in that particular setting, there's specific roles, right? I can chill under the tree, relax, catch up on chats, and be fine. But they are expected to run around and do all these things.
Yep.
And that's where I'm like, when it's two people, it's fine. And then when others get involved, it becomes a bit more difficult. But anyways, we can talk all day and night about the different forms and facets of marriage. I think people shouldn't superimpose.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine, but she's they're Nigerian, right? So one time I used to work with her. Her parents-in-law were visiting, right?
Yeah.
So they were staying with them, right? And UK houses are so small, like everyone is in each other's space, right? So And at the time I used to work a job where sometimes we would do like we would finish late, like maybe start at 12, finish at 8 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So she used to say that um basically because her parents-in-law are so traditional, right? That even if she finishes at 8, 9, like when she gets there, no one has lifted a finger. Maybe the mom
Hectic.
has kippered like chicken or something, right? But then, so what she used to say is that what her and her husband used to do, right, is because when they're alone, oh, best believe he's cooking. Each person is getting their own takeaway. Like there's
Yeah.
none of this, right? But then it's like the performative side when you now have family, right? So she used to say that what used to happen is sometimes if the husband comes a little bit earlier, right, what he would do is maybe he would try and like clean the kitchen or whatever, right? And then when she comes, right, they would close the kitchen door, right? And he would cook.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
That's
and
beautiful.
just so that what his parents don't see him cooking, right? So he would cook, and then like if maybe the parents kind of like open the door, like she would suguma and
Mm,
do the thing. But obviously he knew, he was just like like this is not how we
we do
work,
things.
this is not how we do things. But it's so sad that he can't really even explain that to his
Yeah, you
parents to
have,
be like, yeah.
but you have to be performative, right? So
Uh-huh.
I was just saying to another homie of mine, City,
Mm.
right? At some things, see too, see right. A
Uh-huh.
homie
Uh-huh.
of mine being my girlfriend, by the way. City,
Ah! Mm-hmm.
um, certain things see sharp, but obviously, badala or whatever, we might just need
Uh-huh.
to put on a performance, which
Uh-huh.
is sad, but that's just the nature of how things are. So I may be fine with certain things. I may be fine
Uh-huh.
with, short shorts and whatever, and, mini
Uh-huh.
skirts and all these nice things.
Uh-huh.
But now we're going to meet my dad, for example.
Yep.
That might not fly.
Yep.
And it's not because my views are rooted in misogyny. I'm trying to change who
Uh-huh.
you are, whatever.
Uh-huh.
But that particular space requires
Uh-huh.
a particular sort of conduct.
Yeah.
And it's a huge burden to place on someone to then say
Uh-huh.
to them, change now.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
you should stick up for me when your family is concerned. Like that girl,
Uh-huh.
your friend,
Yeah.
could have very easily said, my guy, I know COVID-9. Can you just
Yeah.
cook? Can you tell your parents,
Yeah.
oh, Timina, I'm tired. And
Yeah.
on a day-to-day, this is not how we live.
Yeah.
That would have obviously put him in a very uncomfortable position.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's an interesting
It is, but Senna,
aspect of life.
is that not rooted in patriarchy? I'm being for real though, right? The performativeness of it.
But I could argue that even the
Uh,
performative aspect of it, if it was the other way around, there's certain things that the guy would also now have to do, which he wouldn't ordinarily do.
like what?
Angas. Let's say I know we go Kubo Emakaya, right? On that
Uh-huh.
one day or that one weekend,
Uh-huh.
they are now slaughtering and all these things. Now I don't do that on a day to day, at any point in time.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not going on a road trip. Maybe she drives all the time. It's
Yeah.
always fascinating how the man always drives.
Right.
Like, it's very
Right.
rare to find a man chilling in the passenger seat and the wife driving the car, even though they both have driver's licenses.
Yeah.
You'll always
Yeah.
find Owuti is the guy in the driver's seat. In
Uh-huh.
terms of roles, I think I'll agree with you, Owuti, for the most part.
Uh-huh.
Um, a huge part of the labor is more, a lot more is demanded of the woman
Uh-huh.
on a day
Uh-huh.
to day than it is of the man.
Yeah.
But they're happy with it. It's not
Yeah.
our place. as I said earlier, to superimpose our views and beliefs on their agreement. That's just my take.
No, I hear you.
Anyways, moving right along. So we have a siyazama. We do have a siyazama actually.
Okay.
But it's not really a siyazama. So Nat, last week we spoke about groove hobos. I'm not sure if you heard the chat. What are your thoughts on that before I get into this siyazama? Has something like that ever happened to you?
No, and I think last time when I was on with you and Thabo, I explained that the UK is a different beast.
It's a different beast.
Remember, I was telling you that if you ask a UK guy for money, he'll block you. like this kind of South African American culture of,
let's be equal.
Pay me. UK Twitter was in shambles with people going back and forth, their veins popping when they were discussing her paying £200 for a date. You should have seen the men them on Twitter angry.
Wait, what is it? What is it about? Is it white UK men or is it black UK men?
So I'm mostly talking about black
UK
I guess that's the culture that I
black British.
tap into. Yeah,
and where does it come from?
I don't know. So I don't know what I'm trying to think, because a lot of UK black culture is influenced by the Caribbean and influenced by
West
Nigerians, right? But then I think West Africans generally seem to be more like, if you get like an original West African, they seem to take pride in sort of like taking care of their women. So I don't know, like in terms of Caribbeans, maybe Jamaicans, I've never experienced that. So I don't know, maybe if that's also from that culture and that's kind of what, but no, Vele, you can't get away with. So what you're saying about, people coming and being like, oh, give me a drink. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is still a culture of, beautiful girls get let into the club, right?
Yes.
Beautiful girls, but maybe they'll be catered by the promoters, but also maybe, the rich guys will be just wanting to kind of have them around, right? So there is that sort of culture, but I don't think you would confidently just walk up to someone and be like, yeah, you're a man, give me this. Yeah.
You can't do that.
No, you can't do that. So I'm always interested, it's always interesting to me, like when I'm on SA Twitter and I'm just like, these things just wouldn't fly.
They wouldn't fly in the UK.
It just would not fly. Maybe like subset of our culture, if that makes sense. Like maybe if you meet a Zim guy or South African guy who kind of is aware, but the thing is, they know Uti, listen, the at the end of the day, they're going to meet another girl, maybe a white girl, who's not going to ask them for that, right? They're actually going to pay for them.
So the thing with SA, it's developed over the last few years, or maybe it's always been like that and we just didn't know. Maybe because Katesi says Badala, we're now paying attention to some of these things, right? So unfortunately, what I have found is South Africa has a very big blessy culture. And it's also unfortunately got a very big Instagram aesthetic culture, which has emerged over the last few years. So put the two together, you have girls who want to appear to be living large for social media, obviously for the likes and the views and the, hey, show me where you guys are at, or whatever, right? There's many reasons for that. So you have that aspect of it. And then on the flip side, you have, it's not on their dime. It's never on these girls' dimes. It's always funded by a much older, much richer guy.
Right.
It's not always, people like to say that the Nigerians are the blessers. It's not always Nigerians. South African politicians started this thing with state money.
With state money?
With
oh my goodness.
money.
My God.
So that's where it comes from. So then when a lot of girls come to the club, it's can I attach myself to big spending guys as quickly as possible so that they can take care of me for the night and do all these things. They'll buy me drinks, and then Instagram will see me popping bottles, and I'll get my clicks. I'll have a good time. I don't have to keep a cent, right? So the culture, unfortunately, is now at that level or at that stage.
Yeah.
I'm not one to judge who these people are. I'm not one to judge the way they live their lives. I just had an issue with umuntu now coming to us.
Yeah.
And now Sesebe, like literally impugane to alcohol. So what I find funny though, that a twist in this, in the aftermath of that episode, it wasn't so much guys who were commenting and atting us saying Oguti, they've been dealing with groove hobos. It was not men. It was women.
What, dealing with other women?
Not other women, with guys being groove hobo.
Oh my God.
So I've got two. I'll shout out to, I'm not sure if this person wants me to read this, but it's fine because they didn't come into the DM. It was in public. So let's go. She goes, her username is Tete. Her @ is Miss Matema. So shout out to you. Thanks for interacting. And always, we see the comments, we see the likes, we see the retweets. We don't take it for granted. Thanks for listening. Your listen is very appreciated. So she goes, I had a girls' night in Harare. We had the same situation with guys stealing our bottles until we had our sober friend keep the last bottle, and they had no shy coming at them on some pass the bottle. I wouldn't be surprised to Harare men are the real pandemic. Personally.
Not the real pandemic.
But that was one, right? And then another one came to us. I'm not sure if she wants us to name, because she came into the DM and she was scared that people would identify her. So I'll just read without mentioning the name. But you know who you are, so shout out to you. Maybe she doesn't want to be identified. So she goes, okay, groove hobo. I felt strongly enough about this to write it all out, but I can't be tweeting it out and disrupt my person's peace. It was my girl's birthday and she wanted to get turned, capital turned. We go to a club that was a little bit more grown than we're used to, but it's cool. We can keep up. There were 6 of us, and we figured it's cheaper to just buy a couple of bottles. And this place had a thing where if you buy multiple bottles, you get a table. That's usually, I think, what a lot of clubs do. So they'll only give you a table if you, give them bottles. So they give us a nice table, and then just like flies on shit. How were they all the way up to middle-aged men coming up to our table and helping themselves to our cups and pouring themselves drinks from our bucket? We were fuming to the point. We were fuming to the point where 2 of the girls took the bottles with them. She picked it up and even went to the dance floor with it because it was that bad. And then a couple of them are coming up in my business saying, oh, hey, girl, let me pour you a drink. How are you doing? What are you doing afterwards? So obviously these were guys who were pretending to chat her up or talk to her. My
God.
It's the audacity for me.
Oh my God. It's what? Guys.
I immediately shut him down by saying, we're not the same. If you can't even get your own drink, move along, sir. I'm with the guy who started the Twitter thread. Broke boys and girls need to stay home.
Broke boys need to listen. Kunzima phandle la.
But as a guy, what's your I don't understand. I've monitored and I've analyzed why girls do it. I'm really shocked as to why guys do it besides getting drunk for free.
No, listen, Senna, these are the same people at school who 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 were never ashamed to ask for anything, right? I maybe because I went to boarding, right, from like primary. So sometimes boarding, sometimes, your food runs out and all that stuff. You just had those kids who were not taught to be embarrassed, who would come to you, awubona usidla, whether loose biscuits or lemon creams, and they'll be like, Ngcela.
Yeah.
That's where it starts. It's those kids who always were like, Ngce,
Yeah.
they grow up to then now be the people at Groove doing this. Seriously, because some of us will, you had a little bit of shame. You had a little bit of, you wouldn't just be like, oh, if you see someone, and just ask them. I remember one time there's at school, back in the day when there used to be like Sweets for Africa.
Yeah.
I don't know, probably before your time, but
wasn't it on 5th Street?
Yeah, and there was one like Hidden and Sly.
Yes, one in Hidden and Sly.
So there's this girl who literally always used to ask for food. Like she would always ask for food, anything, whether you are, if she sees you eating Christmas Day, this is there. The one time what we did is we got those sweets. There used to be these sweets from Sweets for Africa where they were so like they were kind of chilly. And they were like really horrible, like they're like chilly to the point which you are color. And because it's a sweet, you're not expecting it to be that way. So sometime in we got them, and we were waiting like clockwork. We're like, of course, I take them all now.
And she had them.
And she was like, guys, and then she was like, what's going on? We're like, how do you
And she didn't like them.
No, like the thing is, if you're not expecting that taste, it was kind of, it's like that's how I can describe it, like in a sweet. Exactly.
Okay, so this is going to sound very cheese boy. So one of the culture shocks when I got to CBC, right? So when I was at Weston, obviously it's a white dominated school. You all get your lunch boxes. No one hlupas anyone for their food. In fact, something like that would be frowned upon. What white kids usually do, which is very different from what I found later on, was they would swap things in their lunch boxes. Like, well, you have an apple, I have a banana, I'll swap you a banana for an apple. And then, because obviously their mothers pack for you and then you don't choose. So they do stuff like that. But it was never anything that I witnessed later on.
Yeah.
And I got to CBC, there's this phenomenon where you'd have a sandwich. And no matter how small it is, or it's a piece of chicken, people would be like, brah, like, brak. Brag became like a thing. I think I'll have one of the other CBC guys just to come talk about this thing on another episode. So what would happen is if you have a burger, for example, you want a burger at the tuck shop, you're eating you just knew that if you came across some people, they'd be on some brag. The funny thing is, right? That is not a portion of food ongasuta ngayo.
Right.
You can't get full from a small little piece of my sandwich.
Yeah.
And obviously having a giving heart, sengakuniga and whatever. But there was a time when there's certain foods that you would not open in front of certain people because you knew ukuthi they'll be on some brak. You have a hot dog. I'll have like a small piece, and then when I just left with maybe 3/4 of your thing. The worst was when if you opened it in front of several of those guys, and then your food is basically gone when you're only left with like a small piece. The funny thing is, saying no always came across as you're arrogant, you think you're better, or whatever it is. That was unfortunately the connotations that came with stuff like that. But I'm not surprised that maybe those people would then grow up to be ama groove hobos. I don't think that's the case. I really don't think that's the case. I don't think any of those guys who grew up in high school busy or whatever would be pulling stunts like this now.
Yeah.
But it's a funny phenomenon. Like it's tunes sako when as a person when you're doing stuff like that. Sitting, aren't you shy? Are you not ashamed? Is there nothing in you that's like, ish, maybe this isn't it?
That's the thing. They're not ashamed. There's no shy. Guys, let's bring back being embarrassed.
Right?
Like, let's yeah, like let's bring back being embarrassed. Like that's what we need to do.
Yeah, but anyway, shout out to those listeners who came through with those stories. I didn't think guys would be partaking in that. We learn new things every day. But King Kandora did say that it was guys who did that to him with this bottle of Jameson that he didn't even drink. So I guess it is proof what guys do it. I just don't think that they would do it to girls. That was fascinating to me. But anyways, Nat, thank you so much for coming through. I know that you were busy and you had a whole lot of other things to take care of, but I appreciate you making the time. Very short notice.
Yes, no. My pleasure. And guys, I have enjoyed, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the episode too.
Yes, you're officially a cheese girl at this point. An official member.
No. I am honored.
All right, cool. Everybody, before we go, don't forget to retweet the thing, like the thing, subscribe to the thing. Nat, check you next time. Laters.
Yes. Bye.